All right. Well, welcome everybody to this webinar from Clarity House. Today we are going to be doing a webinar with Mack Roller. We're calling this webinar Build with Vision. And we know we're going to be doing it pretty much like a live podcast. So I'm going to bring Mack in here in just a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of an interview with him. We know several people are going to be coming on, and several people have asked for this to be sent to them on the back end of the recording. So just a couple of ground rules as we get started. If you can keep your microphone on mute, that would be fantastic to help us as we record this and that we get great audio and visual coverage from that. Also, if you are here live with us and you have questions, please use the chat feature. Any question you have, you can put in the chat. Shane's going to be monitoring some of the chat as well, and we'll make sure that we roll that into the interview with Mack Roller as well. Do want to invite you to stay on to the end. We're going to be giving you a free assessment in regard to vision that we think could be really helpful for you as you consider, what is next. Shane's going to give you the QR code to that assessment that you can take and use with your staff and team. So you're going to stay on till the end on that, and he'll be bringing out a couple of different things about the tool that we use to help Mack and his team create their vision at Glen Meadows. So with that said, I want to go ahead and bring Mack Roller into the conversation and give just a little bit about him in the interview. Just to let you guys know, Mack is, in my opinion, one of the most humble and gifted leaders that I've had the opportunity to be around. The thing that I love about Mack is really he's a pastor, but he's really a missionary disguised as a pastor. I mean, every time you're with Mack, his heart for Jesus, his heart for people just continues to come out. And I could tell you the stories that I've gotten to be around a table, usually at the Angry Cactus there in San Angelo, Texas, over some blackened fish tacos. The stories of missional frontier that he's been on have just left me absolutely captivated. So Mack is a pastor at Glen Meadows Baptist Church in San Angelo, Texas. He's been there for a number of years and has been through seasons up and down and in between. And today we get an opportunity to do an interview with Mack and just hear a little bit about the vision process that we had an opportunity to walk him through in the capital campaign that was on the other side of that whole thing, and just how that story came about a little bit, and just the good work that God is doing in the middle of that. So Mack, so thankful that you are here with us today, and so thankful that you agreed to be part of this webinar, this kind of live podcast piece. Give us just a little bit of background. I give a little bit about background. Give us a little bit of background about you and Glen Meadows Baptist before we jump in.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dave. It's always a treat anytime I get to spend any time with you and Shane, and man, what a joy it is to be around you guys. But I've been at Glen Meadows. Next week, it'll be 18 years. Came from Central Texas, a small town in the middle of nowhere, and ended up in San Angelo at Glen Meadows Baptist Church.
Yeah. And give us a little bit about the church history. Just, I mean, how old is the church?
Yeah, the church was planted about 33, 34 years ago. It was a plant of other churches in this area, a good, strong association. It began to grow, honestly, at the expense of other churches. There was some crisis. It began to grow. And then when I came, they had gone through some turmoil. There was a lot of disunity. The pastor and the worship leader resigned all the same month. They hadn't spoken to each other. This is what I hear. In fact, the pastor told me this. He hadn't spoken to the worship leader in 6 months, face to face. So there's just some bad blood and bad spirit. Things were not going well. So it was fun when I got here. It was, it was a lot of work.
Yeah. So you jump into that. 18 years, you said that you've been there. San Angelo, tell us where that's at in case people don't know. Where's San Angelo at?
Yeah. So San Angelo is 5 hours west of Dallas. And when the search committee was calling me, they said, we are conveniently located 2 hours from I-10 and 2 hours from I-20. So we're kind of like in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
and it's really good. And if you've been watching the news lately, we got hit pretty hard by the floods. We're not
Hmm.
far from Kerrville. We
Hmm.
had about 1,100 structures that were flooded completely. So we've been involved recently with a lot of disaster relief.
Yeah. So as part of that kind of introduction, just tell us, been there for 18 years. Besides right now, what's been your favorite season of ministry and why when you were there?
Yeah, we got to see some growth in a season. I had a son who was on staff for a while. He's now pastoring another church, and it was just a really good season of. I think we had gotten over a time of healing, a time of purpose. We had done a few just outreach campaigns for a year long, and saw some new people come, and it was a unified vision that we had, and it was centered around one program per se. Um, but yeah, that was a really good time in the life of our church. We saw some healing, we saw some growth, and it kind of
Hmm.
set us up for more growth.
Yeah. So when we came in to help you guys out, and you really the last couple of years, you've been in a season of pretty accelerated growth. And outside of God's grace, what do you attest that how did that happen? Um,
Yeah, I think we took there was some unity in the staff, and I think somehow after going through a few years of disunity, didn't realize that people knew some of the struggles and the stresses of the staff just didn't really gel well together. Uh, the unity in the staff came about by just a lot of prayer, just extended prayer times together and prayer retreats, and that translated into the church doing prayer and worship nights and making a concerted effort to put God first. And so we can do nothing without him. So, and as the chief shepherd of the church, just honoring him and glorifying him. And it seemed like we developed a footing for unity. And
mm,
it was centered around just an expectation of what the Lord was going to do, not so
mhm,
much what our needs and what our personal preferences were. And so that was really a healthy time and a healing time for us.
yeah. So we come on site with you, and you've got this looming capital campaign that I can
Yeah,
feel just on your shoulder. It's gonna be launched. I think it was in November of the year that we were coming in. We were coming in,
yeah,
over the summer and to do some work with you. And we went to the building. We could definitely see you need a new building. You got some growth that's happening. You've been
yeah,
actually putting off a building campaign for a while, right?
yeah, yeah.
But you've got a capital campaign that's right around the corner in November, and I could just kind of feel it on you. You really didn't want to go into that season, right? Tell us a
Did
little bit
not.
about that.
Yeah, man, I've been in a building program at another church, and it's a hassle. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from everybody's opinions to trying to raise money to architects and et cetera. So when it became apparent we need to do something, we actually here at this church had a failed capital campaign. We took a shot at this in 2016, and our I don't know if you knew this, Dave or Shane, it just didn't go well. Part of it was we had too big of a hill to climb. It was probably lack of wisdom on my part, assuming we could get there. The other part had to do with just probably a lack of a compelling vision.
Mm-hmm.
So we put it aside. We did, some people fulfilled their commitments and their pledges, and we did raise money. It wasn't complete failure, but we did raise money. And then as we moved closer into time to look at it, COVID hit, which kind of put us back on our heels and weighing through that to see what life would be like on the other side. Then after COVID, we picked up and started saying, we really got to finish this thing. And uh, and you're right. I really didn't care to build a building. I'm not impressed by buildings. Um, I see it as a necessary tool, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't really want to go through the heartache of it. So you're right. You caught my vibe really well. I wasn't that thrilled about
I
building a
could feel
building.
I could feel it on you. Knew you had to do it. You've been putting it off for a while, but
Yeah.
you're like, okay, we got to do this. But we got a chance to come in there with you. We did some vision work.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we encounter a lot of times is we know that the building isn't the vision.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
for a season, it can substitute as the vision because it's at least something that people can see. We know that buildings are vehicles, they're not vision.
Right.
If you well, I use this illustration all the time. If you ask me where I'm going for on vacation, and I say Toyota, it's just not going to really answer that question because Toyota is a vehicle. Tell me we're going to the beach, and I'll get in your Toyota. So,
Yeah.
the building is a vehicle, but in places where there isn't any vision, building a building can substitute for vision for a season. Um,
Yeah.
you were headed toward building a building without a vision.
Yeah.
I mean, of course
Yeah.
you're a visionary person, but you hadn't really gone through a process to help you steward what's beyond the building. So
Yeah.
just talk to us a little bit about that, and then maybe just how, going through a process helped you go into the capital campaign with a vision that was totally different.
Yeah. I think, the language we used to cast the vision was all over the place. There's no doubt I believed our staff and key leaders knew the vision, just couldn't articulate it,
Hmm.
what we were doing. And, Dave and Shane, going through this process with you and tapping into that collective brilliance of the team and hearing from those who work with children and those who work with youth and administrators, just watching how we work through those certain tools and certain elements that just brought out a clarity that we were
Hmm.
able to say, amen, that's it. And, I said we had a clear vision. I just don't know that we were pointed in the right vision, in the right direction. We were close.
Hmm.
We were on the target, just not on the bullseye. And then just all the different elements we went through and all the different training sessions and conversations, and it just seemed to just rise among us. And when we saw it, we all just basically said, man, that is it. And that was easy to communicate. And the proof was in the pudding. Once we started communicating it, everybody we talked to, we rolled it out. And, it's called a rollout for a reason. It just takes time. And there's certain people you roll to first. And we had a good runway to work with. And so in each wave of releasing this, everyone was saying, yes, that's it. That, that's it. And it became evident by seeing people get behind it.
Yeah, one of the things you're talking about here, we talk about as shared vision. Well, I say it's not hard for a leader to have vision. Of course,
Yeah.
Mac, a leader like you, but what you just testified to was the genius that was in the room with your team.
Yeah.
And really, when we move the pressure from just simply the one lead pastor trying to
Hmm.
cast a vision for everyone to
Hmm.
get on board to saying, no, how do we get a shared vision, a vision team together? And how do we let the collective genius of that room come to the surface? And then we don't walk out of the room with one person's vision. We walk out with a shared vision. And you guys really
Amen.
leaned into that process. And what you were testifying there was genius in the room that
Yes.
you were so thankful came to the surface because it actually lightened your load as a lead pastor trying to come up with it yourself, right?
Exactly. It was a great process. I did stay quiet, just listening to what God was doing in the
Hmm.
hearts of our people.
Yeah.
And not that I didn't have a say, and just
Hmm.
saying, look, I think, this direction a little bit more. But yeah, it was just so honoring to watch the Lord, what he had birthed in each department to come to a crescendo of where we are and just being able to articulate it. It was a joy. And a lot of the tools that we learned and picked up, we had a shared vocabulary in how we acquire a consensus that we even
Hmm.
used it this week. We were just going through certain things and look, is 100% of us 20%, 80% there? And we're like, yes. And so, all right, let's go up this hill, let's do it. So it's
Yeah.
very, very stretching, very good.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
I know in the kind of pre-work leading up to this interview, we were just doing some chatting around, and we were talking about, okay, let's take some time to talk about how has shared vision changed the way that you do church. Want you to share about the capital campaign and the success that you saw as part of it. But one of the things that you wanted to bring out, I know, kind of in our pre-talk was it wasn't just about the resource of the building, it was the resource of the people that shared vision really
Yes.
activated.
Yeah, no doubt. And one thing that I've noticed is that we go to the vision constantly when we're dealing with the placement of our people. what roles does each individual play when we're about to hire 2 more staff members? How do they help us with this vision, and what area are we going to onboard them and hand things over to them, and how will it lighten the load for this minister so that they can focus more on the vision? And so the vision isn't just a random thought of the future. It is a driving force of the presence.
Mhm.
It's helping us with key
Mhm.
decisions. And as we, develop the vision, and basically just to summarize, if you don't mind me sharing it, what
Yeah.
we really see is we have a full vivid vision. It's a full page, but just the stump speech is that by 2032, our 45th anniversary, we will have created a renewed pipeline, not of metal, but of people, not carrying fuel to power machinery, but living water from the spring of life to empower a movement of healing and freedom to the next generation across the 13 dry and thirsty counties of Concho Valley. And that just resonated with our people. And when we coupled that with a vision of what the tool of a building could do, um, people caught it. And where our goal from the very beginning of the capital campaign was to have 100% participation of all of our givers.
Mm.
And, I thought that would be a very challenging goal, and it definitely was. But the result was we ended up with 134%
Mm.
of givers. In fact, not only did 100% of our givers give, but we gained more givers to this vision. So what we did is we raised the generosity of our congregation among every families, and added more families that were givers. And I believe it was God's timing, bathed in prayer, but the tool of the vision kept us unified in alignment that helped us get across where we're at. And
Mm.
so we were really blessed by that.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit more, like, if you don't mind, on some of the details. How much were you trying to raise going into the campaign?
So we set a goal of 13 million. I'm sorry, set a goal of 10 million.
Mm.
And we were able to share that we were, with pledges and giving, it ended up being 13 million.
Unbelievable.
So it was 3 million more than our goal. And it actually looks like, our finance team is projecting out for 2 years, and we will definitely surpass the 13 for sure. So it's been a God thing. It's been fun. And I tell you what also has been good is that we haven't started the construction yet. And that's a good thing because we've actually added to the building.
Mm.
We've added more classrooms. We've added an administrative wing, and it is just, it's been fun. It really has.
Yeah. Yeah, so going into that campaign, and the rollout, and now you're going into that campaign trying to raise 10 million, a little bit nervous about trying to raise the 10 million, but
Mhm.
you started having conversations. We kind of coached you a little bit in how to roll that out. And you were telling me some stories of people who were basically saying, "This is what we've been waiting for," in a way that helped them release their generosity. They wanted to give, but they were waiting for the vision to emerge in order to release that generosity the way that they had capacity for. And even people that you were telling me you didn't even know they had that kind of capacity, they they gave in some incredible ways. To give us a couple of stories.
Yeah. In fact, one guy, actually really good friends with him. And the first campaign, he just said, I hope it all goes well, but I probably won't be participating in this. And I was really mad at him, to be honest with you. I thought that was pretty a sorry thing to say, but that's what was on his heart. And this time he came to my office and he gave the third largest gift we had had at that time. And he was just really blessed. And he just said, I really think this is going to be the minimum. And he's not only an individual who gave sacrificially, he's a guy that gives of his time and his talents as well. He serves on one of our committees, and he was good. We also had a lady tell me that her son, who was visiting out of Colorado, he was here during the vision part of our campaign, and he decided he wanted her to send him a pledge card when we gave out pledge cards, because his point was, I want to be a part of this.
Mm.
I just really want to be a part of this. And he's a member of another church.
Wow.
Um, so it was really humbling to hear how God had brought things together. And honestly, I was very happy with we did exactly what we believe God had called us to do, and whatever
Hmm.
the results are going to be, we just pray that it's beyond all that we could think or imagine or ask or imagine, and that God would receive all the glory.
Yeah.
And so,
Hey, real quick, as we're talking some of these details, one of the questions that's coming in the chat was, did you have a capital campaign consulting firm that was helping you? So we were helping you from the vision end, but did you have a capital campaign? Can you give us any info on that as well?
yeah, so our contractor, who we love, is golf companies. They just do churches. They really consult in a lot of other areas, but they led us to a guy named Brad Leeper. And Brad has been very good for me. I mean, not only for the setting up the program, but anytime I had any kind of questions, look, I know someone's asked me to talk to them. How do I approach them on these? How do you look? I don't naturally ask for money. I just
Mhm.
don't like doing that at all. I just think, man, if God has their heart, He has their money, He'll do with them. But what I learned is how to talk to people to answer the questions that they are asking in their mind. And but some of the high end givers, which I don't walk in those worlds, I don't live there, but they ask different questions and they have different expectations. And Brad was able to coach me in some of those, and it turned out to be a blessing for everybody involved. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
love that. Yeah, thanks. And again, we want to recommend that, especially if you're going to a capital campaign, there's the
mhm,
vision side of things, there's the capital, side of things that we have lots of friends that can help out in that area
yeah,
as well. So really glad to hear just the results and the way that you use both sides of those things to create a campaign that was really, really successful. It's
mhm.
interesting though, when we talk to you now, you are building a building, right? We were
Yeah,
talking the other day and you're hitting all of we got a gas line here and this there, that kind
yeah,
of thing there. But you never really lead with the building. You lead with the vision. Can you just share a little bit, as you're now starting to build the building out, how does it continue to activate in you as a leader? Especially because people love what they can see. So of course they're going to love driving by the ground that's being broken, love seeing the building go up. But that's not what you want stuck in their minds. You want that vivid vision, that pipeline of people, not just the building. How's that continue to help you as a leader? How do you imagine it'll help you once people do start seeing the structure go up? How do you imagine that helping you as a leader?
yeah, for sure. It's you know the design of the building. The property is to promote the vision, and so
Mm.
what we've done with the next generation emphasis, uh,
Hmm.
how we're going to put the liturgical theming throughout the hallways that point to the vision, and what we're using to point people to the key elements of the vision, whether it's small group and disciple making or duplication. Um, that's the structure of the building, but just constantly reminding people. I don't think anybody would doubt this statement is true, that we really push the vision more than we do the building,
Hmm.
and it's from Sunday after Sunday. We give reports and we give updates, but I think people are more excited about making disciples who make disciples as we lead, as we live life together, reaching the next generation.
Yeah, I love that because, I remember when we were working with you and your team and, a couple pretty big hotbeds, rose up in the room. One was in regard to the military base that was there. One was in regard to the college that was there. And then, this 13 county area that was there as well. And, even while you were looking at the building, you're like, the building has got to get us to those places. Like what we don't want to do is just build something that keeps us from those places. We got to build the launching pad that helps us get to those places, because we're not going to just simply build bigger to get more people housed here. We're trying to get, a 13 county deal going.
Right, right, yeah. So we do believe in bringing people in, building them up, and sending them out,
Hmm.
and not wanting the building to be a focus of that at all, but just to launch. And we just can't do that without a stated vision. It can't,
Hmm.
if you're not using the same vocabulary, if you're not promoting that in all of your printing and all of your video and your website, if it's not there, that vision creep takes place very quickly.
Right.
And it just has to be visited and said in different ways, and it
Yeah.
just has to be said.
Yeah. And Mac, I know that as part of that, your whole staff carrying that language, you know, when we were working, it was so with you, it was so evident of the missional visionary heart that you had. I mean, like the work that you were doing on the ground personally, whether it's in your neighborhood or, riding with, a gang and being their chaplain, there are so many things that were, but there was a gap between your missional expression and really the congregation's everyday life. And I
Yeah.
and the same was true of your staff. And I think what we were able to, just get to steward for a moment was language that bridged that gap. Is there anything you just want to share about that, whether in regard to that shared vision language helping bridge the gap between you haven't changed your life, so to speak, at all, but your life
Mhm.
has become way more accessible through the vision for other people to find their way to be the kind of missionary that you are.
Yeah, I think one thing we did, and part of the discipline of acquiring the vision, was what are the problems
Hmm.
in our 13 counties?
Hmm.
And the suicide rate in Tom Green County is higher than the national average. Identifying some of the struggles of the individualism, the rugged individualism
Hmm.
of our Western society, the single moms. And so when I would articulate that to our leaders,
Yeah.
every one of them would go, yes, that's a major problem.
Hmm.
Yes, I know those people. Yes, I've been those people. Um, they caught not just a vision, but the need of the vision.
Yeah.
And that need, that just scratching that itch, or literally the living water going to the dry and thirsty counties, meant a lot because we're always in a drought.
Hmm.
And using the analogy of the pipeline, we
Hmm.
Midland is an hour and a half away from here, and a lot of our people work in the oil field, and they understand pipelines, and that it's a pipeline made of people and not to fuel machinery, but to bring the water, living water, to reach those that are depressed and in suicide, those that are dying and going to hell, those single moms. How are we going to do this? And that language, identifying with our culture and pointing us to the need, was a
Hmm.
catalyst for mobilizing people in ministry. So some people just can't see it when they
Yeah.
see it. It has to be explained.
Yeah,
And
you're diving down to something that is so key when it comes to creating vision, and that is you have to name the problem. If you don't name the problem, the vision's dead on the arrival. People don't know what the vision is a solution to. And so,
yes,
you guys being able to name the problem
yeah,
and then give the vision, that accentuated something different than if we're just trying to, give the vision. So I love that you're diving down into that.
absolutely. Yeah, it made a difference with our people for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, in our process, we say you got to name the problem, you got to cast the vision, but you also got to name the urgency of why act now. I want to go in just maybe a question or two, in regard to you're coming to, I mean, how to say, not your latter stages of ministry, but you're not
Sure,
going to be pastoring there forever
sure.
at Glen Meadows. You felt like you had maybe one more run in you, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
in this regard.
sure.
Talk to us a little bit about, I mean, because we're gonna have a lot of pastors that are in that stage of life as well, and they're
Yeah,
saying, okay, this may be my last vision campaign or second to last vision campaign kind of thing.
yeah.
I want it to matter. What would you speak into a pastor who's in that stage of life?
So I wouldn't, at this stage of life, I wouldn't go into this without a compelling, burning vision. I couldn't imagine doing it. Um, I couldn't imagine doing this without the energy that a compelling vision brings. And, right now, I'm 62. Uh, I can imagine easily doing this deep into my 70s just because of the
Hmm.
energy and the fellowship, I should say, that we're seeing.
Hmm.
Uh, but Without that, I don't think I would try it. Here's why. Um, as we were going into this, I'm thinking, you know what? If we go into a big building campaign, there's probably going to be debt. I mean, that was a
Hmm.
given. There's going to be debt, and I don't want to leave the church in debt. That means I'm going to be, stuck trying to get this church out of debt as I turn 70. It's what I'm thinking. But with the vision, it completely changed things immediately for me. I mean, it was a movement within my soul, and was, I mean, you can ask my wife; she'll tell you, yeah, there was a change, and it's like, no, this is something way beyond a building, way beyond debt, and it began to carry us. And you know what, Dave? This is very likely our finance team is telling us there's really, really strong possibility we won't have any debt by the time we
Mm.
walk in the building. And it's just a huge celebration because of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, last piece here, just as we kind of start wrapping things up, in regard to, well, let me get a question that's coming in here. Uh, what was the connection? You stated the problem being the kind of suicide problem. You stated a couple other things besides
Mhm.
suicide that was part of the problem. What was
Yeah.
the connection they're asking to the building program from, some of those problems that you named?
Yeah. So naming this breakdown of our faith being transferred to the next generation,
Mm,
which we're seeing not just in our church, but in every church. Gen Z and Alpha has allowed our culture to fill the gap of all these things that are broken down, which it would be disorientation, disintegration in the church, relying on drugs, consumed by entertainment, relational isolation, rising suicide rates, and untapped potential have become the norm. But then we say, but it doesn't have to be this way. We
mm,
believe that God has strategically positioned all of us at Glen Meadows to step into the gap as we continue to renew our commitment to become the disciples who make disciples. And we imagine a people pipeline made up of grandmothers, grandfathers, parents and foster parents, businessmen and women, teachers and coaches, classmates and teammates who daily demonstrate and declare the wisdom of God, or the wisdom and the power of the gospel in their everyday lives. Together, and it says we will have adopted 8 schools. We will have established an enduring gospel presence among our next generation reservoirs with Angelo State University and the Goodfellow Air Force Base. And so that became the compelling part. Here's the need, but here's what we're going to do about it.
right.
And then it gets into a little more specifics of how many disciples do we want to have? 500 disciple makers uh, in 8 years, 145,000 gospel conversations within 8 years. And then we develop systems to track all that and to produce all that. So that's where the burning desire came from. Man, we can do this. I can see not the numbers in dollars, but the numbers in people, resources who can be these disciple makers who are reaching these people that their whole lives and their families and their legacies will change.
Right. And one of the things, to connect it as well with what the question that was coming in about the building is architecture always should be an expression of vision.
Yes.
So architecture follows that vision, and you start saying, hey, if this is what we're going to accomplish, what is it that we might need in a building to help us be able to do that? And
Yes.
what was apparent, and this is part of why you guys are in a building program, your architecture was actually getting in the way. Like the current place that you were at would have actually gotten the way of this kind of vision. And so building the building was important, but not just because we need a bigger space. That was never going to be your heart as a missionary leader, just to build more space, to build more space. But
Yeah.
if we're saying, what kind of architecture do we need to accomplish this vision? That's a totally
Right.
different kind of conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's helpful. And if you look at the design of our building, which we're building a whole new campus, basically, an auditorium, big commons area, and
Yeah.
then children's area with outside play. But the commons area is the key. I mean, that's where the connections are taking place. And right now, we just have a small little lobby. You just pass through it. And
Hmm.
we really wanted people to develop relationships around a cup of coffee, around a donut, and be able to sit and talk, and creating those environments for the vision to take place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. Thank you so much, Mac. I want to bring Shane in just for a second. Shane, if there's anything that you have in regard to follow-up question, but hopefully this has been really helpful for people who have been listening. But Shane, you're going to introduce us a little bit to an assessment. You're going to introduce us to maybe some tools that we use that we take people through. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Shane in. But before I let Matt go on that, Shane, anything that's burning in your heart that we didn't get to that you want to ask? You want to
Well,
ask Matt?
I'm just Matt. I love it because I've named a bunch of bullets that I just heard, from you. Vision's not a one-time thing.
Hmm.
It's staying in step with the Spirit. And we often say about every 7 to 10 years, you got to really just revision that. But I heard you say in the beginning, hey, we had a vision in the beginning, and there was this need to, God, what is this next, in this next season?
Right.
The prayer emphasis, prayer
Mhm.
starts in, or vision starts in the prayer room, and is
Mhm.
clarified in the boardroom. And I know
Mhm.
even, as we were working with you, just really, challenging and inviting the team to be praying first before we, stepped in that. And even what you just said, earlier, that it's like it seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us was like the resonance that came out of that.
Yeah.
Um, and you without clarity of a compelling vision, a capital campaign, quickly the building becomes the vision. Phew, that
Yeah.
is, I've seen that a million times.
Yeah.
I'm just noting, vision's not hard, but shared vision is. And so many times, I appreciate that you name Mac that, like, so many times in the heart of the leader, we're clear, and we assume our team's clear, especially the longer we've been somewhere. And it's
Right.
amazing how many times like there's a disconnect
Right.
with some team members sometimes on, like, where, in their heart they're asking where we're going on that. So love, 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 love that. And then two, the other thing that I heard you say is, man, you got a problem, cast before you vision cast, and
Yes.
really help people see outside the walls. And even as you're talking about building, like, how do we see outside the walls
Mhm.
to what is the heart of people out there? And that then maybe a building is required, maybe it's not, but the vision is going to be a solution to that. So love, love, love it, brother.
Man, bless you guys.
All right. Well, Shane, walk us through maybe the free assessment piece as well as the tool that we use to help teams clarify this.
Yeah, let me just start with tools for some of you who are you're listening in here. You're hearing Matt kind of share kind of a compelling, vision, picture of the future, and I think that's even as Mac was leading that. I mean, using metaphor, I think it's another principle that he's drawing out, and that is people aren't moved by numbers, and they're not moved by statements, but they're moved by a picture of the future. And we use a tool in that is popularized in the book God Dreams by Warren Bird and Will Mancini, and we've adapted that a bit. But it really is just how God's created our physical vision and creating different time horizons, which I think is also important. Sometimes we have this long range vision, and people are going, yeah, but what are we doing, in this next year? And so we really help try to solve that, and we call it the 1414. And I'm putting up this picture. I know those of you listening can't see the picture, but just picture in your mind for a moment. If you're looking out at a mountain scenery or whatever, and there's something that you can't see behind those, a set of mountains, but you're drawn to it. You can see some mountains in the background if you were like rolling into Colorado. If you're rolling into San Angelo, there's not a lot of mountains. Max got there, but if you're in that kind of space, and then if you were driving towards those mountains, there's like your eyes are going to be just kind of right out on the road in front of you, and then you have kind of a dashboard in front of you. And then in many ways, that's the way that we think about vision. In fact, the tool that we use is we have a little nickname for it called the 1414, is really giving us four time horizons. And we think about it in this way, that it's the right amount of vision content in the right amount of time in the future for the entire leadership team. And you heard Max saying, it's not just me who's clear on that, but our team's clear on that. And it's truly guiding us into the future and helping us make decisions. So the furthest horizon is usually that 5 to 10 years. You heard Mac naming what that was for them. We say that's one big shared dream. And do we as a church have this compelling kind of picture of the better future that we long for, that is our shared dream together, that we're asking, banging heaven's doors for, that we're giving our best to, because we really see it as this is the direction that God's inviting us into. And then that next horizon, a lot of times, and Max got those, he actually started naming some of those out. You heard him name those. It's 3 years into the future. We call them strategic objectives that are kind of big 4 big mountains we need to climb on the way to that long range vision. And those 3 years, we call them the background horizon. They really create a broad level roadmap that helps really direct resources, personnel, energy. And again, you could hear Mac naming, those aren't about just buildings and things. It's actually about how many disciple makers would we have, and how many schools would we be engaged with on that as well. And it just helps the team know, hey, in the next 3 years, this is really what's most important. And there's such a key principle there, because it's, this may be true if you're listening. I know it was said to me 20 years ago. I still find it true today. And that is, we often overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what can happen in years 2 and 3 if we'll stay the course. And that's really what that background horizon does. And then it also provides that next horizon is in the next 6 to 12 months. What's kind of one big goal that we're going after? Like, what's our next step? A key to leadership, any leader and leadership team, is where are we going and what's most important next. And really, that's what that one big goal helps clarify for not just the leadership team, but for the congregation to go, hey, on the way to that long range dream, we know right now we're kind of putting all of our efforts towards this one thing in the next season that really becomes a rallying cry for us, and what needs to be emphasized most, that really as many people as possible can be part of and contribute to. And that last time horizon is around 90-day, or some churches will do 120 days based on their rhythm, but 90-day action initiatives, which are really just directly or indirectly things that must be started, if not completed, in the next 90 days to make sure that we're making progress as we step with God into the future. So this is really the tool that we use. I mean, I think it's a great kind of even pulse check of, sometimes we have a long range vision and we don't have the clarity of those strategic objectives in the next 3 years, kind of 1 year, to know, are we actually making progress? Other times we have a real short range, beyond Sunday's coming. We have, hey, we're moving from here to, a fall launch right now, and then it's Christmas, and then it's going to be Easter, and we have the short range, but not a real sense of that compelling picture of the future that really gives meaning to all that short range kind of stuff that we're engaged in. So in that, there is a little assessment that we have on our website that you can take, and it's just at clarityhouse.us /clarity-assessment, clarityhouse.us /clarity-assessment. And it just takes a few minutes to fill out, but what it does is it helps kind of clarify, which areas do we feel have strength in, and maybe which areas is there some weakness in. And sometimes what we're tripping up, the symptoms we feel as a team around us, the disconnect, or we pulling in different directions, is because maybe one or all of those elements, potentially are out of sync, or maybe have eroded over time, and we need to bring those back to the surface there. In fact, Dave, one of the fun things is when, even as a team meeting, you can literally pull it up on the website, and as a team, you can just answer each question and kind of score it as a team. And I think the collective conversation as a team is really, really helpful. And then it'll give you a little customized kind of feedback that it'll send to you. And so again, you can take that as a leader, or you can take it as a team. But we also have a 2-day visionary planning retreat that we do, and it's a little bit of what Mac was a part of a larger process with us, but sometimes we come in and we'll do just the vision piece with the team that's preceded with a season of prayer, 2 days for 8 to 10 people on the leadership team, and then we do some coaching afterwards around what Mac was describing. Is you don't just launch out your vision, you really lead it out. How do you cascade that to the right kind of stakeholders over time, so that it really creates vision ownership among different tiers of leaders, and then to your congregation so that it's not just a blip on the screen, but it's something that's being dripped continually. And I loved, Mac, hearing your story of even how your team is constantly being reminded of the vision, and it really is guiding you. It's like God's pulling you into the future. You're not pushing yourselves into the future, but God's pulling you into the future, and He's inviting you to join Him. And your team's constantly getting reminded, yeah, this is what we're after together. So therefore, how are we make this decision or that decision? So those are two opportunities that are available, Dave. If that's I think that leaders can step into.
That's great. Thank you, Shane. Well, we're about to wrap up this kind of webinar, but Mac, I want to give you one last chance. What last words would you say to people considering maybe going into a vision process? Anything that you would speak to leaders as just kind of last words.
Yeah, I just think your voices from the outside coming in and your eye for evaluation just really guided us very gently, but very purposefully. And it was just a great process. And it's a process that we've taken even farther and just value it completely. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, we continue to hear such great reports from what is happening out there with you guys. And honestly, every time I think I can't be surprised again, you guys surprise me. And so I just love celebrating, both your faithfulness and your team's faithfulness as a leader, but also God's grace. Because again, we all know at best we're doing our best to just follow where the Lord is taking us. And when we get to see evidence that we're doing that in the right way, it's fun to celebrate. Sometimes I feel hesitant to celebrate because I don't want to ruin it by celebrating.
Yeah.
But I can't help but celebrate what you guys are doing.
Amen. Amen. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you so much again, Mac, for being here. Thanks for everyone for being on. For those who are listening to the recording, if you want that conversation, we would love to follow up in conversation with you. If vision process is something that you think could be really helpful to you and your team, we would love to have that discovery call conversation with you. Mac, again, thanks for being here. Thanks for your wisdom. Shane, loved all those nuggets that you pulled out of what Mac said. And man, those are things that hopefully are well worth the listen today. That list of things is just absolutely beautiful. So thank everyone for being here today, and we'll see you next time on the Clarity House webinars. See you, everyone.